It is very, very important to understand the meaning of words that we use each and every day that have become part and parcel of the parlance that we use in the development community. Replication, upscaling, upscaling. What exactly do these words mean? It is very, very important for us to understand this, and I contextualize this within an African proverb, which goes thus. When a handshake passes the elbow, it becomes another thing. In context, this African proverb reminds us to never ever get too familiar or comfortable with anything, that we must always be on the alert and verify all things. All things cover even the words we use and the meaning we ascribe to them. There is another famous saying in the continent today, which is that when you get used to things almost in a joking way, and more so put in perspective, that the more things change, the more they remain the same. For over 60 years of independence, Africa, arguably the most endowed continent in terms of diverse natural resources, some of which has since been theoretically monetized and fancy as natural capital, which is okay, means that we need to look at why is Africa a poor continent or also a rich continent. I mean, this is an intellectual debate that is worth discussing, especially at this time. Africa is still considered a continent in adversity. One doesn't have to think hard to realize that the narrative of upscaling successes, of upscaling successes, of replicating successes are most of the time taught through the money lens alone that we have become familiar with and has set the continent on a wild goose chase. Let's put it in perspective. The number of hungry people in the continent, the number of poor people in the continent continue to increase. If we were to go with the numbers, I'm talking about 257 million African citizens who wallow in poverty, who go to bed each and every night with their stomach aching of hunger. I'm talking about the 620 million African citizens who are energy impoverished. And the list goes on. These are not just statistics. These are people's lives. These are people's lives. These are the stories of people's lives. With these realities, the urgency for remedial steps is unquestionable, and that is why we have to discuss these aspects. And the first step that we need to look at is policy. Policy is the biggest driver of change. Yes, that's unquestionable. But what needs to be done to ensure that policy can become more relevant? And I've argued this many times. I've argued that policy is the biggest driver of change. And boardroom policy should not just be policies, but they should be in such a way that they're not disconnected with reality. If you take, for example, if you take the work that the innovative volunteerism actors are doing in driving climate action across the entire African continent, they are fabricating solar dryers, they're developing briquettes, they're driving climate action, they're doing the work on the ground. The work they are doing is providing empirical evidence and data. For instance, they have come up with effective solar dryers, and these solar dryers are made from local material, and they are 200% cheaper as compared to imported. The effectiveness and the affordability of these solar dryers provides empirical data to inform practical policy positions, especially in areas to do with post-harvest losses, and drive climate action from a market perspective. And that is how longevity can be ensured and sustainability. As a first step, these improved solar dryers that have been done and carried out and fabricated by this youth, they are generating data. That's what I said. And these can then be used by standard organizations across the continent, because we know that the solar dryer can dehydrate, and they're proving to dehydrate a variety of food items to below the 12% threshold key, which is key to prevent aflatoxins, as specified by standard organization. But leveraging this data becomes important in reshaping and informing policy that can bring meaning to people's lives. But what needs to be taken into consideration is that let's build on what works. Proliferation of initiatives without building on what has worked is not doing any good to the continent. We must now change this and build on what works and use a system thinking approach to connect the dots, because connecting the dots is the DNA of transformational climate action. And that takes me to my last point, which is on mindset change. It is very, very important, especially now, to drive a renewed mindset. It is the right way to bring impact to scale. Beyond policy, nothing beats a renewed mindset. Because we know that a false culture always falsifies development. And the question we need to ask and also answer is, what are Africa's cultural values that can be tapped into to bring impact to scale? Because we know that if we do not tap into a renewed mindset, we might not be able to seize opportunities. The jury is out. Today, we therefore need to discuss and revisit how human capital, your skill, my skills, your talent, my talents, can actually be harnessed to be able to drive transformational climate action across the continent. For quite too long, we are focused on bringing finance alone to scale, without knowing that to bring impact to scale, we must then be able to use a different approach that taps into people's passions, into people's inspiration, into people's motivation, to leverage on their skills, their talents, and ensure that they retool their skills. Because without their skill, without their inspiration, without their passion, without their selflessness and purpose, finance alone will not be able to bring impact to scale. If you take $1 trillion US today, it will not be able to bring impact to scale unless people are retooled, especially their skills. We might not be able to drive transformational climate action and development. What we know is that a skilled person capable of actively being passionate, applying themselves to convert challenges into opportunity is 15 times the value of natural capital and 4 times the value of produced capital. The secret to multiply success in Africa lies in tapping the region's sovereign capital, especially her youth, that constitute over 60% of the entire population. When we tap into their skills, their talents, their interests, their energies, their aptitudes, and the enterprises they are already driving today, these youth can be able to bring impact to scale, but they need to do so in a structured guidance way. And that's what innovative volunteerism is doing. Innovative volunteerism youth across the entire African continent as we speak today, they are leveraging on their skills and talents, and they are being guided. And these youth, which we're already seeing, are structurally guided and inspired to drive familiar climate action enterprises. They are doing it differently and leveraging on contextual situations in which they are, whether they are in Togo or in Ghana or in Nigeria or in Kenya or in Uganda or in Zimbabwe. Across the entire African continent, they are leveraging on what they have and putting things within the context in which they are. Whether they're turning waste recovery to domestic energy solutions that have existed for so many years, or they're taking different enterprise approaches by different ways of doing things, or they're fabricating solar dryers. These realities are telling us that to bring impact to scale, we need to inspire people so they can develop their own unborrowed vision, so that they can actually do things and use their skills and retool their skills to be relevant. This is the way to be able to bring impact to scale. These are critical ingredients. Passion that unleashes selflessness constitute critical ingredients that can unlock other values that are quite very, very important. These youth are selflessly sharing lessons among themselves, among innovative volunteerism actors, and coming up with different ideas and generating empirical data. And these lessons and data from this successful climate action that they're carrying can actually bring impact to scale across the entire African continent. It therefore becomes very, very important to understand that to bring impact to scale, we need to leverage on policy and focus on renewed mindset as the right tool to ensure that impact is not only brought to scale, but is brought in a way that makes meaningful change to people's lives. This is the way to define replication, upscaling, upscaling, so it can make meaning within the context of the African continent. Stay safe.